Now, I've been asked to leave, so items 9 and 10 we're going to leave until Glenn Livingstone gets back, but item 9, I think it's probably appropriate that Leanne chairs that rather than me chairing that, as I'm a trustee of the Housing Trust. And we have got item 21, which Leanne has asked that we consider when she's present. So if we now move to item 22, so now we're into the Infrastructure, Transport and Environment Committee items. Item 22, the Central City proposed bus passenger shelter installations. Pauline, do you have any comments on this one?
Yeah, this is just for 2 bus shelters. It's staff generated, and the big thing about these is there are no objections as a result of consultation, and that makes a huge difference when installing bus shelters. So the consultation was held in November. This is to improve accessibility of the bus stops and to ensure user satisfaction with the number and quality of shelters. You'll see the images on page 305 and 306. Page 305 is a council shelter, page 306 images an ad shell. The cost is $24,000 for 2, but if ad shell come on board, it's reduced to $12,000. And noting here that normally community boards do have delegation, but in this case it's an exception for the Central City area marked Plan A, in which both of these sit. So the committee approved both of those unanimously, so I'd like to move them.
And Dion will second.
Oh, and sorry, can we please note in the recommendation that we had a discussion that we give the one by the skate park a street art treatment to deter graffiti, and so we've left that with Brenda O'Donoghue to follow up via the staff.
And I note in there, and this was a question that I got actually, provided there is evidence that this reduces graffiti. Now, in my own uninformed little mind, I have the idea that it would reduce graffiti. Are we needing proof of that, or is it clear that that is the case?
Well, we didn't want to push it forward without that evidence, and I think that evidence is readily obtainable, so the staff member was quite happy.
So you're comfortable that that will go, the evidence will support it, and we'll go ahead?
Yes. Yep. Do you have a comment, Dave?
All I can say is Brenda's working with the team to get it appropriately painted when it does go in on that particular site. So we will monitor it over the coming years. We do get a bit of graffiti, but we also are very proactive in removing it.
Yeah, all right, that answers the question. Thank you. Further questions? Yanni?
I just can't see from this around how we're prioritising the placement of bus shelters. Is there a master list or a prioritisation process based on usage that we're following?
Yes, there is, and Brenda could give you the detail of it. I'm sorry, I have texted her, but she's not quite here yet, or she's on her way. Right. Yes, it does. It looks at the number of people. If you have a look at them, principally they are ingoing, so it's where people will be waiting for buses, where you hop off a bus and come home. Here we go. She's in the hot seat. How do we prioritise where our bus shelters are? You have the details here. I've just explained it all to them, but you put it in proper language.
You're welcome.
So for bus shelters, we prioritise based on usage. How many passengers are using the bus stop in question? So if we target ones that are used by more people, we get more value out of the shelter. Then there are other aspects such as what's in the periphery. Is there a retirement home? Is there a school? So those are the things that have not so much black and white data beside them, but there are other things that we consider. So having a prioritisation that you can actually go back to and defend is very useful for staff, because we have a set budget and we have to get the most out of our budgets.
That was a much better answer.
So exactly what I said, wasn't that? To these two, where do they rank on that list?
Where do they rank? Well, they obviously rank reasonably high up in the list to be considered for this year. Because we have quite a number of shelters around the city, and we're just basically working our way down through the list. And again, it's the passenger numbers that trigger what we look at. Yeah. The list is pretty much every single bus stop in the city and what are the locations that don't have shelters. So that list would be basically a list of bus stops without shelters.
Sorry, I'm just trying to, like, if we've got 100 people using a bus stop without a shelter,
Yeah.
that would be up the top.
Yes.
So we must have some sort of idea around, I don't know, the top 20 or...
Yes, again, it's a list with the bus stop ID, and then in the next column it's the patronage, and then the next column is if it's yes for shelter or no, it doesn't have shelter, and we just go through each of those. It is pretty much as basic as that, and we look through that and see, in terms of patronage, which is the next bus stop on that list that doesn't have a shelter, and as you say, a bus stop that has 100 passengers per day, would it ring alarm bells if it doesn't have a shelter?
Okay, I was just...
Can I just say there's also a timing issue. If the bus stop has objections and requires a consent, it can take a lot longer. And that's why it's really good to get as many in as we can that don't need a consent and fire them in. So.
I understand that. I was just looking at, obviously you've got the new commercial development happening further up Morehouse Ave. Is there another sheltered stop further up?
The commercial development, you mean by the supermarket?
It's where the old railway station used to be.
Yeah, yeah. Again, I would have to look at, what the patronage would be at that particular bus stop.
Right, okay. And then just two other very quick questions. One is, have we thought about putting recycling bins in where we've got rubbish bins, given that we want to be kind of sustainable?
That's a question I can't answer.
Okay. Can I ask that we get some advice back on that? Because I would have thought a recycling bin next to the rubbish bin would be a good thing at the one at the skate park.
So that would be a consideration other than bus stops, but I'm sure that we can get some information back on what...
Yeah, I think through the committee, because this is the work needs to happen through the committees.
It's just got... Yeah, remember the one we had where we would want to recycle?
Okay, so can we get a memo back to the committee on what we are doing or what we could do to put recycle bins at bus stops? Thank you. Final question?
The final one was really support the street art thing, but it shall also have a requirement to provide, as I understand it, some sort of community advertising and the digital ones. And so could we actually ask that we get some local images, some amazing images of street art, of local artist work that they've been doing? Could we actually get, or make a request that they display some of that? My understanding is they have to display every so often something to do with the community as part of the contract.
We can go back to AdShell and discuss it further with them.
Can we just do it? Like, why do we need to?
We have a contractual obligation with AdShell, so we would have to discuss first and then advise.
Right. Okay.
We may not all be on the same page with regards to what's AdShell put on, because I would prefer to go back to the local community board to ask them if there's going to be a community or a segment in advertising that are there needs and wants that it needs to be promoted by that local community board. So I don't think, personally, I don't want this council to make that or make a recommendation. I'd like to come from the community board.
So is there, if we were to get into that kind of a process, is it possible that the community boards could have input in the way that Tim has just described?
I'll have to report back.
How about we have a look at the contract? I'd have to have a look at the detail of it if there is any opportunity for us to do. There's certainly opportunities for council to buy space, but what you're looking for is community free of space. I'll have to actually have a look at what the contract says, and we can come back to you. And then if that's available, then how do you allocate that out if you want to? That's the question, I think, isn't it?
Let's get this back to the committee. So just really information on what level of community input the contract with AdShell allows in terms of bus stop. It's not design, is it? It's.
You're talking about advertising. With the new screens that are coming up, they roll the adverts every, below to I know, 30 seconds, 50 seconds, something like that. And so what I think Councillor Johansson's asking about is whether we can actually put up some community images, community messages, local or whatever. Now we'll see what the contract allows for in that. Obviously, from our perspective, we share the advertising revenue, and so, that's the basis of our agreement at this point in time. They provide and maintain and those bus shelters, and then we share the revenue coming from it. So I'll go back and have a look at what the contract is, and and what it does say.
And you'll come back to the committee on that?
Correct.
Fantastic. Thank you. All right. Sarah.
Just quickly with the patronage numbers, is that assessed, is that the ECAN sort of measures of how many people hop on and off the bus? Does that include, you know, gold card users, all of those kind of people who hop on for free? Does every user?
Every user, irrespective of card, gold card or cash.
Yeah.
It's a boarding number, it's not an alighting number, so it gives you an indication of how many people are waiting to get on a bus.
Yeah, including school kids and...
Including school kids.
Okay.
If they use cash or card, it's irrespective, they're recorded.
Yeah. Right.
Thank you. Dion? No? Okay. And Tim, we picked up your comment before. That's fine. So no further questions. So can I have a mover for this item, please? So moved by Aaron. Has it been moved and seconded already? Right, okay. That's all good. Okay, debate. Okay, so I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? That's carried. And then